You're listening to The Support Report with Be Present, where we share real stories from young adults and how support changed their lives.
Thanks for tuning in to another episode of The Support Report with Be Present. I'm your host, Justin Peters, and my guest today is Eddie Torrez. And Eddie, he came on to discuss his journey battling ALL, and he also brought with him one of his childhood best friends, Isabella. So, Eddie, Isabella, welcome to the podcast. I want to start with you, Isabella. Why don't you just tell the audience a little bit about who Eddie is, just outside of ALL, growing up with him, knowing a ton about him. What kind of person is Eddie?
Eddie is the brother I never had. When I went to college, actually, I moved away to Hawaii and he needed a place to stay. And he stayed in my room and he got a key to my house before my sister did, actually. So just to give the impact Eddie has had on my family. I've known him since we were in 4th grade. We were in the same class together and we've been friends since then. And throughout his whole ALL journey and the whole college journey, we've just been friends with each other. It's just been the same.
He hasn't changed as a person, huh?
I mean, he has. Of course he has. It's been since 4th grade. But
He's grown up a little bit. He's put on a little bit of height.
Yeah, just a little bit.
And if you were to describe Eddie in 3 words, what would you say?
3 words.
What 3 words come to mind?
Disney comes to mind. Family comes to mind. And probably dance.
Okay, I'm excited to explore those 3. I did hear that he loves to dance, and I'll circle back around on that later into this podcast. But Eddie, why don't you walk us through your cancer resume? Tell us a little bit about the story, the journey. Where did things get started?
Yeah, so I'm 20 years old now, and I was diagnosed when I was 17 in 2017. And I was diagnosed with acute lymphoblastic leukemia, also known as ALL. And I recently just ended treatment this April 2020.
Congrats.
And been felt like 10 years to me. But with the support of family and friends, I was able to get through every obstacle. And yeah.
So what initially started, how did you find out that you had ALL?
Yeah, so a month before I was diagnosed, I went on a trip to Mexico, with family. And over there, I had randomly fainted. And we thought it was just, oh, you're dehydrated, or we were at high altitude, so it must have had done with that. And we came back home to San Diego and I started experiencing more symptoms like bleeding gums and nausea and fatigueness. And there was just this one day where I had felt so drained and so weak and tired. At school, I couldn't walk from one class to another. And even a friend and a teacher pointed out that I didn't look good. And I came back home and I told my parents, and my parents knew something was going on, that there was something going on. And they had taken me to the doctor the next day, which was Friday the 13th. And that night they diagnosed me with ALL. And I didn't find out until the next morning, which was January 14th, 2017. And that had actually been my birthday. So the first thing that I woke up to on my birthday was that I had ALL.
Man, that's a tragedy. What was your initial feeling whenever you heard that?
It didn't hit me at first, honestly. I was too excited, too young, about my birthday, They had told me I had ALL, and I was just so I'm not gonna be leaving the hospital today. Like, when am I gonna go home? And they had to like give me the news that I'm gonna have to stay there for a month, maybe even 2 months, like for the first part of my treatment. And I was really bummed out. It still didn't really hit me. Like, I kept thinking like, oh, I'll be better soon. Like, after these couple months, like, I'll be fine. But I kept getting sicker and sicker. Like, I felt like I was being like stripped away from of being normal. And and at one point it did hit me. I say like it was like it hit me randomly, just like one day at the hospital, and I just started crying all of a sudden, and I just realized like, wow, like this is my life now. Yeah.
And what was your understanding or experience with leukemia or cancer before that? Did a family member go through any of this, or did you know a lot about the disease?
No, I didn't know a lot about it. I did hear of it. I heard of it, and I knew like it was a cancer, and but I didn't know much about it. I had a ton of questions. I still have questions to this day. I'm still learning everything about it, and I didn't have any family members at the time who also had leukemia. But actually, like 2 months later, I was diagnosed. My uncle was diagnosed with a type of leukemia too. Not the same leukemia, but a different type.
So Isabella, what were your feelings whenever you heard the news?
I actually remember like exactly where I was when I heard the news, but like I didn't like register that it was such a big thing. I was like, okay, like I feel like the way it impacted me, I like in my head I thought like, oh, okay, Eddie has like a broken ankle or something. He'll be back in like a month. But then like we would go to school, and then it obviously like circled through like our dance team like what had happened, but I don't think any of us really like registered what had happened until like a month or so after, because we were like, oh yeah, Eddie's like not gonna be back for a while. But yeah, I didn't even like register how serious it was until much later also.
So Eddie, you were mentioning you were in the hospital for a few months. Walk us through what treatment looked like. You know, how long was it? Just those first couple months that you're in the hospital, or how long were you there, and what did the typical day look like?
Those first like 1 to 2 months that I was in the hospital, like I said, I felt sicker and sicker every day, and like there were some days where like I don't even remember like what happened, because I've always told myself to put myself to sleep, because if I fall asleep then I wouldn't feel sick, I wouldn't feel the pain. So I would try to sleep as much as I can, because I just felt so sick and in pain. Like I didn't want to handle it anymore. And that was like those first 2 months. And when I was sent back home the next year, I would still like, I would be back home, but it wouldn't feel like I'm back home, because I'm having to constantly go back to the hospital. And when I do go back to the hospital, they're like 1 to 2 week long visits, sometimes even longer. Like I would go home for like a week, and then I would have to go back to the hospital for another 3 weeks or something. And that was the whole like next like year and a half maybe. And
were you in the pediatric side, or when you stayed in the hospital, who was typically around you?
Was that it was in the like hematology clinic.
Okay.
Sorry, I'm not really sure.
You're gonna know more than I will, Eddie. I promise you.
But it was the hematology clinic or hemonc or something for Rady Children's Hospital.
Okay,
And
you're at Rady's.
So, yeah.
Mm. And Isabella, did you ever get the chance to visit Eddie in the hospital?
Yeah, I think I visited him. He had like a mini birthday party there once, and we were just outside. But then another time, I had come like just by myself. I had come from work, and I actually like went up to the floor, and we just went around like we went to like one of the small rooms and like played video games in there and stuff. But I only visited like a few times.
Okay. And whenever you did visit, what was the experience like? Had you been in the hospital a lot before then? Anyone that you visited, in your previous life, or was this really your first experience visiting somebody in the hospital?
My mom's a nurse, so I've been like in a hospital quite often, but I've never been in like a children's hospital. And I remember going there and just being like, dang, like, because I don't know, like I felt so, I don't even know how to explain it. I just felt so like, I don't want to say humbled, but like,
Sure.
You know what I mean? Because I like realized how Eddie's situation, like he was very fortunate to have his leukemia discovered like in stage 1, and like he had a really high like survival rate. So I didn't realize like the other side of things. And I was so fortunate to like be able to go visit my friend in the hospital and like bring him food or like just go like hang out there for a little bit.
Yeah. What did you miss most about life before you were diagnosed? Is there something with that with your extended stay in the hospital? Like what, when you woke up one day, what were you craving? What were you missing?
Friends, really. In high school, when I was diagnosed, like I was very like active with like clubs, and I was also on the dance team. And through like those clubs and the team, like I've made so many friends, like even from outside of school. I kind of lost a lot of those connections because I was in the hospital for like a long time, like off and on. So I'd have to like stay home, and there are some events that I had to like miss out on.
Did you feel like your relationships with your friends changed?
A lot of them did. I'd say I had a lot of like friends in high school. I had a lot of connections, and I lost like a lot of that. And even like connections like near me, like in the same school as me, our relationship has changed, and it wasn't the same.
So on the flip side, I'm sure there's tons of friends that you stayed really close with. Isabella seeming like one. What did great support look like during your cancer journey?
Great support looked like when they would come to the hospital to visit me without asking me, because in the time I was in the hospital, especially on days that like I'm really sick, most of the time I would ask my friends like not to visit me. Like I wouldn't ask them like to come visit me, like, but if they had asked me if they could come visit, like I would say, sure, you can come visit. But there were a few times where friends like just came to visit me like out of the blue, and it would like warm my heart a bit. Like, even though I kind of didn't want them there to see me so sick or see me so weak, like they came to support me anyways. And also times like when they would like back me up in like when I get into like these struggles like with people who don't really know me. We'll probably talk more about that later, but yeah.
So for the person that's thinking that, has a friend that is in the hospital and that thought comes up, I want to go visit them, but I don't know if it's appropriate to just drop in on them. What would you say to them? If you were on the flip side, how would you approach that situation?
Well,
because the last thing I want to do is show up at the hospital and you're so sick that day that you feel bad, but you have to tell me no. And I worry about that. And we've had a lot of conversations about that on this podcast. But for you, it seemed like it was almost the opposite, where, even on some of your days, it still brought you joy whenever friends would come and surprise you.
Yeah. I think it's because those times that my friends did visit me, they had actually contacted my parents instead of me, if they can come visit. And like my parents are with me almost like 24/7 at the hospital, so they know when a good time to come is. But if I was in a situation like that where I just wanted to like pop in and they like didn't want to see me, like they were just too sick, if they needed a space, I would definitely like respect that. And
speaking of your parents, how did your parents handle the news and that 3.5-4 year journey for you?
My mom was pretty strong about it. She would tear up sometimes. But she wouldn't, or at least I didn't see her crying or sobbing a whole lot. Same with my dad. He would tear up, and they would handle it as strong as they can for me. So I wouldn't have to like get scared from like how they react to it. Yeah.
That'd be such a challenging situation. As a parent, I would feel that you would feel very, very hopeless in that situation. So, Isabella, you mentioned either the half birthday or birthday party. What was that story? What can you explain what that day was?
Honestly, I don't remember like which birthday was. I think because Eddie had I think it was like 2 birthdays after he was diagnosed. He wasn't able to like celebrate it out of the hospital. And this was one of those times. I think this was one of those times where like he was really planning to have it outside of the hospital. So I think he had like put on this whole plan of like to go like have food and all this stuff. But then like something happened, so he ended up having to stay in the hospital. So we like gathered this whole thing. It's like, oh, if Eddie can't leave the hospital, let's just go visit him for a little bit. Like just because like he can't leave the hospital, so let's just go over. But then his family was there. I think he was planning to have like a birthday party at home, but instead his family from home like had come to the hospital. So we were just like outside in this little courtyard, and like we had did all the birthday stuff, like we blew cake and all that. So it was nice.
That's awesome. That sounds fun. Do you remember that day, Eddie?
Yeah, it was 2018. It was the birthday after after the diagnosis, a year later. And yeah, I was planning a birthday party here at home, because my last birthday I had to spend it in the hospital, and I thought, I want to celebrate my birthday like here at home. And I just randomly got sick, and I had to go to I had to stay at the hospital. And like my friends and family were suggesting like to still have the party, I guess, outside of the hospital, because we can't have too many people up in the hospital room. But yeah, we just had a little celebration. Yeah, it was really nice.
So I'm curious, how are you approaching this next birthday of yours? How are you looking at that birthday? a day where you share both the day you were diagnosed and the day you were born is a really interesting concept. And I guess this next birthday for you will be your first cancer-free birthday, technically, correct?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So how are you? Have you thought about the day yet?
It's coming up, huh? It's November and my birthday's in January. I don't know. We're still in quarantine right now, so I don't know if we'll be able to do anything. But I'll be pretty happy. I'll be blessed to be cancer free and having to spend my 21st birthday out of the hospital and here at home.
It's your 21st birthday, huh? That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's exciting. Cool. So, Isabella, you mentioned your mom's a nurse and then supporting Eddie. What, between those two experiences, what has been something surprising that you've learned throughout that?
I just think that not much really has changed between our relationship. I remember I wanted, because I know a lot of people would be treating Eddie like he was fragile and all that, and I didn't want to do that. So I just wanted to remain constant. So I obviously I tried my best, and obviously some things are going to change. But I think despite all that, we've still come out of it. And when you said it's his first quarantine, his first cancer-free birthday, I was even so surprised, totally forgotten that he had just his last birthday wasn't cancer-free. So even I was so shocked that not much has changed despite everything changing, and that Eddie still remains my parents' favorite person and my favorite person.
Is he ahead of you in the family hierarchy?
Honestly, I wouldn't be surprised.
That's hilarious. So if a new supporter is out there listening, what is one thing that you would tell them to either do or not to do based on your experience?
Based on my experience, just keep doing you, because I feel Eddie, you can protest if you want, but I feel if I were in Eddie's shoes, I wouldn't want someone to just be so treating me like I'm so fragile. Just keep remaining the same person and be there for them. Just because they're already going through so many changes. There should be at least one constant in their life. So that's what I tried.
And what do you think about that, Eddie?
Yeah, I actually totally agree. Not treat me like I'm fragile or I'm weak or I can't do anything because of what happened to me. I want to be treated normally like everyone else. Of course, there are times where I feel I make these requests due to my illness, little things oh, I really need to sit down, or I don't know, little things, and I would hope that they would respect my wishes. Yeah, somewhere around that. Yeah.
And communicating about your cancer, would you prefer people to just be direct? Talking maybe those first 2 months when you saw someone for the first time, would you prefer somebody to just come in and speak like nothing is different and catch up like old friends? Or if I wanted to ask you how you were feeling, like how you were seriously feeling, is it respectful to just ask the question to you?
To me, I actually like it when they ask questions, because leukemia and the whole cancer concept can sometimes be confusing sometimes. So I actually like it when people ask questions. I ask questions myself, because that just means they want to know more about what I'm going through and what it is. Yeah, I think I like it when people ask questions.
So cancer-free day, that day, I'm assuming you went to the hospital. Did you run some final tests? And then what was that day? What did it look like? What was the feeling?
It was like, let's just get this over with. That day I had my last procedure. I had a procedure for the, like a spinal tap, I think that's what it's called. And before I went into the procedure, I was just thinking like, they're going to put me to sleep. And when I wake up, like I walk out of this hospital and it'll be over. Like, and then, but sometimes I would be like, well, I'm still coming back for a checkup next week. But I was really happy about effects, like side effects, like symptoms, like wearing off, like over time. Like I do notice some like changes from then to now.
And what's some after effects that you've experienced?
After effects, I had recently got told by the doctor to see an endocrinologist because due to all the medication that I was taking throughout treatment, it gave me really low bone density. So I'm probably going to be having to get that checked out soon.
Well, I appreciate you coming in, sharing your story, and Isabel coming in and telling your story about being a supporter. I'm curious, both being dancers, I told you I was going to ask you about dance. So what song did you dance to whenever you found out you were cancer-free? What's your cancer-free song?
When I found out I was cancer-free, what song did I dance to?
What came out in April? I'm trying to see what came out in April.
I don't know. I haven't really been dancing because of quarantine lately, but I'd say
there's something on your mind. Just say it.
It's a
Was
K-pop
was
dance.
Wannabe out?
Yeah, I was gonna say Wannabe.
I knew it.
It's the song Wannabe by a K-pop group named ITZY.
Yeah, so good. TikTok has created so many opportunities for so many great dance songs. And it was like it like blew up right at the perfect time with quarantine when everybody was stuck inside, just like looking for what to do. Yeah. Well, how can I waste this next hour? So, well, I appreciate it. Before I ask my last question, guys, can you both, if somebody resonated with your story, they want to connect with you, where's the best place for them to reach out and get connected? Eddie?
If anyone wants to reach out to get connected, I'd say the best place to reach me is to DM me on Instagram. It's at Torrez_Eddie. That's TORREZ_EDDIE.
Awesome. Perfect. And Isabella?
Probably the same as well. My Instagram is at Isabella JRZA. So probably a DM or email, which is just isabelladreza00@gmail.com.
Cool. Awesome. Well, my final question, in your opinion, what's one thing that someone could do to make a difference in the lives of children and young adult cancer patients? Do either of you have some ideas?
Well, can you repeat the question? Sorry.
Yeah. What is one thing that someone can do to make a difference in the lives of children and young adults with cancer?
Like what we were talking about before, like I'd say like asking questions to get to know more about it, and not to sorry, what am I doing? Lost my train of thought.
For me, it seems like almost not to shy away from the conversation, to be
Yeah.
inquisitive, to be okay, not understanding and
Yeah.
not avoiding the fact that you don't know that. I hear that as a thread from a lot of the guests that come on here.
Yeah. And also just to be very like aware about their concerns, because illnesses like this could be really unpredictable. Like one day they could just feel absolutely fine, and then the next they could get really sick and they wouldn't be able to do like their normal daily activities.
Yeah. Isabella, anything to add before we close this conversation?
Probably just be there. Like, I feel like just being present is like a really good thing for anyone. And especially like with someone who has been stuck in the hospital for the past like few months, and especially like with COVID going on, if anyone has like any friends like in the hospital, but like just like a FaceTime call could mean the world, because they're so like used to just seeing like nurses and doctors and their parents. So it would be nice to just like talk to them and not act like nothing's going on, but just like kind of get their minds off of it to like relieve that stress that's already on them.
Yeah, I think that's a great piece of advice. Well, Eddie, Isabella, thanks for coming on to the show. I really appreciate you both sharing your story, and looking forward to staying connected.